Hello everyone, welcome to the classes on modern Indian history. We will be discussing the old class 12th NCERT on modern India by Bipin Chandra, chapter wise. My name is Samriddhi Mamgai and let's start this journey on modern Indian history. So the first chapter of this book is The Decline of the Mughal Empire. So briefly I'll tell you what we will be studying under this chapter. In this chapter, we will be observing the reasons that led to the decay, disintegration, and decline of once mighty Mughal Empire. So you must be knowing that Mughal Empire was vast, it was powerful, and it covered almost the entire Indian subcontinent till the 17th century. But then there were some problems with the empire that started creeping in, which led to the ultimate decline of this empire. So ultimately, you will see and you will study in this chapter that around 1803, the Mughal Empire shrank to a small place in and around Delhi. And finally, the Mughal Emperor became the pensioner to British East India Company. So pensioner means that the Mughal Emperor was given a fixed income by the British East India Company, and the real power rested with the Britishers. So the Mughal emperor, he just became a nominal ruler. So what were the reasons for such a decline of such vast empire? So firstly, the successors of Aurangzeb, they were weak and inefficient. So that means there was no able leader who could have saved the Mughal empire. Secondly, the financial resources and the military resources of the empire started declining. So one of the example why financial resources were depleting was the reckless grant of jagirs and offices to the mansabdars. Then thirdly, there were peasant and zamindar rebellion from time to time. Then the next reason was that the mansabdar, they also grew very powerful. So they were consolidating their power, and it became very difficult for the Mughal emperor to check them, to check their growing power. Then the next reason was the subadars of the various provinces, they also grew very powerful, and they were looking for the opportunity to declare their independence and challenge the Mughal empire. Apart from these reasons, there were the Rajput kingdoms, and there were Marathas in the Deccan, the Sikhs in the west. So they all also served as the threat to the Mughal empire. So all these were the reasons that led to the decay and decline of the Mughal empire. So background, how Mughal empire became important in India, what were the reasons after which the foundation of Mughal empire was laid. So the first battle of Panipat, it was fought between Babur and Ibrahim Lodi. In this battle, Babur emerged victorious, and he laid the foundation of the Mughal Empire in India. Decay of the Mughal Empire. Now, this Mughal Empire, as I told you, it was very strong and powerful, but some of the weaknesses started to creep in under the reign of Aurangzeb. So Aurangzeb, he ruled for around 50 years from 1658 to 1707, and there were some challenges during his tenure, some weaknesses in the Mughal Empire. But still you can say that the empire was strong and still it was powerful. Now after Aurangzeb, when he died in 1707, his 65-year-old son, Bahadur Shah, he became the next Mughal ruler. So Bahadur Shah, he was a tolerant ruler, and he wanted and he reversed some of the narrow-minded policies of his father. So Aurangzeb was an orthodox ruler. He implemented some of the policies that were not liked by the people. So Bahadur Shah, he tried to remove such policies. So one such example was there was no destruction of temple during the reign of Bahadur Shah, and also he tried to establish friendly relationships with Hindu Rajas and Rajputs. So he adopted the policy of appeasement. As there were a number of problems that were ailing the Mughal Empire, Bahadur Shah, during the beginning of his tenure, he tried to remove and resolve those weaknesses. So he wanted conciliation and negotiation with the foes of the Mughal Empire. So he took some of the steps. In the Rajput kingdoms of Amber and Marwar, first Bahadur Shah he tried to interfere. So he replaced the ruler Jai Singh of Amber by his brother Vijay Singh. And in Marwar, he forced Ajit Singh, the ruler, to submit before the Mughal authority. But then these two steps were not liked by the Rajput kingdoms, the rulers, and there was lot of resistance. So Bahadur Shah has to take back his step, and he restored them the kingdoms of Amber and Marwar. So finally, Jai Singh was given the kingdom of Amber, and Ajit Singh was given back the kingdom of Marwar. But their other demands of high mansab and the subadari of the province of Malwa and Gujarat were not met. So Bahadur Shah, he made half-hearted conciliation with these two kingdoms. He did not give them the mansabdari and the subadari of uh, Malwa and Gujarat. So before proceeding, I want to tell you what is the Mansabdari system. Mansabdari system, it existed during the Mughal Empire, where those in Mughal service were given Mansab. So under the Mansab decided the rank and status of the Mansabdar, and simultaneously he had to maintain an army of cavalrymen which were known as Savars. So they were these two things, the Jat and the Savar. And Jagirs were given to the Mansabdar so that they can maintain their army. And these army, the cavalrymen, they supported the Mughal Empire during wars and helped them to expand their empire. So finally, the Raja Jai Singh of Amber and Raja Ajit Singh of Marwar were not given the high mansab. Further, with Marathas were very powerful in the Deccan, and they were also rising against the Mughal Empire. So Bahadur Shah wanted to make peace with Marathas also. So he granted them the Sardeshmukhi of Deccan, but he did not give them the Chauth. So Sardeshmukhi and Chauth were basically two types of taxes collected by Marathas on non-Maratha lands. So Chauth was 1/4 of the land revenue, and Sardesh Mukhi was additional 10% revenue on those lands which Marathas claimed they had the inheritance rights. So to prevent Marathas from raiding these lands, they collected Sardesh Mukhi and Chauth. So Bahadur Shah, he gave them the Marathas Sardesh Mukhi of Deccan, but he did not give them the Chauth. And secondly, he did not recognize Sahu, who was the grandson of Shivaji, as the rightful Maratha ruler. That means he kept the loophole open between Tarabai, who was aunt of Sahu, and Sahu. So they were fighting for the supremacy and leadership of Marathas. So again, the conciliation with the Marathas was half-hearted. Thirdly, Bahadur Shah, he wanted to make peace with the Sikhs who were very powerful in the West. So he gave a high mansab to the last Sikh Guru, Guru Gobind Singh. But after Guru Gobind Singh died, he took strong measures and strong action against his deputy, the second in command, Banda Bahadur. So he Bahadur Shah led military campaign against the Sikhs under Banda Bahadur, and the Mughal forces, they captured the fort of Lohgarh, but the Mughal forces could not crush the Sikhs. Then fourthly, Bahadur Shah, he tried to make peace with the Bundela ruler Chhatrasar and also with the Jat chief Churaman, who was very strong in the west of Delhi. So these were some of the steps taken by Bahadur Shah. Further, now Bahadur Shah, he was dealing with the problems of the Mughal Empire, but he died in 1712. So he could not do much on the weaknesses of the Mughal Empire. After his death, again, there were the conditions of civil war as to who will be the next Mughal emperor. Now, after his death, a new phenomena, it emerged in the Mughal politics, where nobles played a very important role as kingmakers. So earlier, the nobles, they only helped the princes to become the king. But now nobles, they would become the real power. They would choose the prince, they would help the prince, but the real power rested with the nobles. So the emperor became the puppet in the hands of the nobles. So the first such noble was Zulfikar Khan, and he helped the son of Bahadur Shah, Jahandar Shah, to become the next Mughal emperor. And again, Jahandar Shah was not very powerful, he was weak, so the real power was with the Zulfikar Khan. And the primary focus of Zulfikar Khan was to remove again the weaknesses of the Mughal Empire. These steps were: firstly, he abolished the hated jizya. So, jizya was the tax on non Muslims, subject of the Mughal Empire. So, he abolished jizya. Secondly, he gave Jai Singh of Ember the Subadari of Malwa. So, that means Jai Singh was made the governor of Malwa. And Ajit Singh of Marwar, he was made the Subadar of Gujarat or the governor of Gujarat. Fourthly, he tried to pacify Marathas in the Deccan by granting them the Chauth and Sardeshmukhi of the Deccan. So both Chauth and Sardeshmukhi were given to the Marathas, but there was one condition, that the collection of these taxes would be made by the Mughal officials and then would be handed over to Marathas. Next, he tried to pacify the Jat ruler Churaman and the Bundela chief Chhatrasar. But the old policy of suppression towards the Sikh and the Banda Bahadur, it continued. So the policy of suppression continued against the Sikhs. Also, to improve the finances of the Mughal Empire, Zulfikar Khan, he encouraged revenue farming, where the middlemen or the revenue farmers were employed by the empire, and they would collect the revenue from the farmers, and they had to give a fixed amount to the Mughal empire. So that means these middlemen could themselves, they can collect any amount from the farmers, which led to the operation of the farmers. So they could collect any amount from the farmers and they had to give a fixed amount to the Mughal empire. Also, he tried to check the reckless growth of Jagirs and offices to Mansabdars so as to improve the finances of the empire. So, Zulfikar Khan, he was an able wazir who was trying to remove the problems that were ailing the Mughal empire, and he was powerful also. So, the Emperor Jahandar Shah, he did not like the his wazir to as he was becoming very powerful. So he was also, the emperor was conspiring against his wazir. In 1713, Jahandar Shah, he was defeated by his nephew Farooq Sayyar at Agra with the help of Sayyid brothers, who played the role of the next kingmakers. So Farooq Sayyar became the next Mughal emperor, and he made Sayyid brothers Mir Bakshi and Wazir. So Sayyid brothers also took some of the steps to check the decay of the Mughal Empire. So some of these steps were as follows. Firstly, they adopted the policy of religious tolerance. So they believed that Hindu nobles and the Muslim nobles, they should work in harmony so as to strengthen the Mughal Empire. Secondly, they again wanted to make peace, and they worked to make peace with the Rajput princes of Amber and Marwar by giving them high positions in the administration. They also tried to make peaceful relation with the Jat chief Churaman. And lastly, with the Marathas, they gave their king Sahu the Swarajya of Shivaji. That means the kingdom that Shivaji wanted to create, the Chauth and Sardeshmukhi of 6 provinces of the Deccan. So these were some of the steps taken by the Sayyid brothers. So Farooq Sayyid was the emperor, and Sayyid brothers, they were the very powerful nobles who helped him to become the emperor. But Farooq Sayyid, he did not wanted to be the puppets in the hands of Sayyid brothers. So he wanted to remove them, Sayyid brothers, and Sayyid brothers, on the other hand, believed that they should have the real power so as to check the decay of the Mughal Empire. So ultimately, there was a continuous power struggle or the tussle between the Emperor Farooq Siyar and the Sayyid brothers. And finally, the Emperor Farooq Siyar was killed by Sayyid brothers in 1709. The Sayyid brothers then appointed the next successor to Farooq Siyar, but the two successors, they died in quick succession. So they appointed the third successor, Muhammad Shah, as the emperor. So Muhammad Shah was made the next emperor of the Mughal Empire. And the Sayyid brothers themselves, they faced the conspiracies at court by the other nobles, because the other nobles, they did not like the growing power of the Sayyid brothers, and also they did not like them because they acted as traitors by killing the Mughal emperor. So finally, in 1720, Nizam ul Mulk, who was supported by a group of nobles, he could finally overthrow the Sayyid brothers. So the younger brother was killed and the elder brother was defeated at Agra. So this ended the domination of Sayyid brothers as kingmakers. So Muhammad Shah, he became the ruler of the Mughal Empire, and he ruled from 1719 to 1748. He was made the emperor with the help of the Sayyid brothers. And finally, the emperor, that means the Muhammad Shah, he conspired and helped Nizam ul Mulk so that he could be freed from the clutches of Sayyid brothers. So the reign of Muhammad Shah was long and stable, as people still revered Mughals as their ruler, and the army was still strong. The Rajput rulers, they were still loyal to the Mughals, and Marathas were confined to the south. So the conditions were still in favor of the Mughal Empire. So a strong minded ruler could have rebuilt his empire in such situations. But Muhammad Shah was weak and he was short sighted. He was committed to the life of luxury and he totally neglected the affairs of the state. And then he started suspicious. He was suspicious towards his wazir Nizamul Mulk. So this led, although Nizamul Mulk, he tried his best to reform the Mughal Empire, but ultimately he left the Mughal Empire in 1724 to found a new state of Hyderabad in the south. As he left his departure, it was followed by a series of claims of independence. So the zamindars, the rajas, the nawabs, they now started rebelling against the Mughal authority, and the Marathas were also trying to expand their territory. So again, the problems that were ailing the Mughal Empire, they became strong. And the final jolt to the Mughal Empire was the attack by an outsider, Nadir Shah, in 1738-39. It was the final nail in the coffin, which created a vacuum and gave opportunity to the British to establish their empire in India. Now, here brief background of the conditions as to how Nadir Shah became the ruler of Persia. So Persia in the 18th century, it was under the rule of a weak Safavi dynasty, and there were many dangers. The most important dangers were the internal rebellion by the people in Persia and the foreign attacks. So the most important attack was from Russia in 1722, and Russia occupied some of the territories of Persia. In the following year, in 1723, Turkey also invaded Persia, and it also occupied some of the territories in the Persia. In 1724, both Russia and Turkey, they signed the treaty where they divided parts of Persia amongst themselves. So it was during this time that Nadir Shah, he emerged as a strong commander. So he forced both the countries, Turkey and Russia, to give back those territories of Persia that they had seized. And in 1736, Nadir Shah declared himself to be the Shah or the King of Persia. So this was the background of Nadir Shah. Then Nadir Shah, he attacked India. What were the reasons that helped him, that aided him to attack India? Why he attacked India? What was the situation in India at that time? So the factors that favored the Nadir Shah's invasions of India were, first of all, he was attracted towards the wealth of India. So he knew that in order to maintain his army, his military, he required money, and these finances could be made from the wealth of India by plundering India. So the first factor that attracted him was the wealth of India. Secondly, he knew that the Mughal Empire, which was ruling at that time, has its inherent weaknesses. So it was weak. So the opponent was not strong. Thirdly, the northwest frontier, it had been neglected by the rulers for many years. So there was no powerful opponent who could have stopped the invasion of Nadir Shah from northwest. And lastly, there was lack of unity among the nobles of the Mughal Empire. So as Nadir Shah was advancing towards India, still the nobles, they could not remain united against their common enemy. So all these factors favored Nadir Shah's invasions to India. And finally, in 1939, in the Battle of Karnal, Nadir Shah defeated the Mughal Emperor Muhammad Shah and made him his prisoner or captive. And he plundered the wealth of Delhi and also took with him the Kohinoor diamond and peacock throne of Shah Jahan. So he looted Delhi, people were killed, and the wealth was taken from here to assist the Shah of Persia. It is said that Nadir Shah looted around 70 crores from India. So, with this wealth that he looted from India, he exempted his own people in his own empire from taxation for 3 years. So that means they did not had to pay for 3 years the taxes to the king in Persia because he had looted a huge amount from India. Now, what was the impact of Nadir Shah's invasions on India? Firstly, It affected the prestige and finances of the Mughal Empire. So Mughal Empire, it was revered by the people. It was a very prestigious empire, which but it affected its prestige and finances. Then the enemies were strengthened. So Marathas and the foreign trading companies, they now knew the weaknesses of the Mughal Empire. So now they do not consider Mughal Empire as their a very strong opponent, because they knew the Mughal Empire had weaknesses. Then this line of defense to the west, in the northwest India, was lost, because the areas to the west of Indus were given to the Nadir Shah. So therefore the line of defense was weakened, and the nobles, since there was financial crisis, nobles were fighting over the jagirs and offices, and they started collecting uh, rent from the peasant, which led to the oppression of peasantry. So this was the impact of Nadir Shah's invasion in India.